my experience happened in 2003. That's when I had the experience of dying and then coming back. And leading up to that, I was very involved in the amateur bodybuilding industry. Me and a friend of mine, we were, trying to climb that ladder of building our bodies and learning different techniques and that kind of thing. While in that process, we learned of different supplements that would help your muscle recovery happen quicker than normal. But they were natural. They weren't, steroids or anything like that. And we found a particular brand that worked really well, but it was oversold. You couldn't find it anywhere in the United States. So we went online and found a company in Thailand that offered some. And it looked a little different, but it's pretty much the same stuff. So we ordered a bottle of it. What we didn't know, though, to our own demise, both of us, that the product that was coming from Thailand was a concentrated formula, and it was 20 times stronger than the American stuff. So, when it finally came, it was a Saturday morning. We decided to go ahead and open this bottle. It had come the day or two before that. We opened that bottle. We each took a dose, and it's just a liquid supplement, so just a little liquid bottle cap. But we really should have only had one drop, but we had a whole bottle cap. And it was right away apparent that it was toxic to us. Yeah, and that's where the story begins, is with what was happening to my body because of this supplement. Instantly, we both felt our bodies starting to cool off, which is a very odd feeling. And what's very interesting too is since then I've had surgeries, I've gone under anesthesia, and it feels just like anesthesia, where the cooling effect that starts in your legs and in your chest and in your arms, and it kind of spreads to the rest of your body. That was starting to happen right then and there, right after we took it. I could feel it. But we had learned, as invincible 25-year-olds, we decided, well, if you're having a problem with something, go eat, and that's going to make you feel better. So we decided, let's go grab a bite to eat, and maybe that will make us feel better. So we drove a couple blocks down the road to a Dairy Queen, and that's where all of this happened, was in that Dairy Queen. We barely made it there. My buddy was starting to nod off and go unconscious while he was even driving. I was like shaking him. I even put the car in park for him. And then I stumbled out of the car, went directly in the restaurant, and made it directly to the bathroom. And the bathroom was a single-use bathroom, so I automatically locked the door just out of habit. And right then and there, I collapsed. I fell and I collapsed on my back, and I began to vomit and aspirate my vomit. That's what killed me. That's actually what did me in.
Wow. So it wasn't the product itself, it was the
No,
aspirating.
it was the aspirating
So
that
what
did me.
happened to your friend?
So my buddy, so this is what's weird. From where I was, I all of a sudden came from being in this shaky place where the world felt like it was shaking and spinning, to now all of a sudden I was looking from above,
Mhm.
and I was watching the scene of this restaurant. I could see everything that was happening. And I saw him. He was collapsed on a booth. So he must have come into the restaurant, collapsed on the first booth, and he was vomiting all over the booth. I was watching him vomit. So it must have been just seconds after me, he was now vomiting as well. And I was watching him vomit. I watched the manager come over and see him. The manager called 911, which is emergency services. He got emergency services there, and an ambulance came and just hauled him away. He ended up being just totally fine. They did pump his stomach, treat him for, food poisoning or poisoning. And he ended up getting checked out of the hospital the very next day. So he did an overnight stay in the hospital. Meanwhile, nobody saw us come together. So
Oh,
nobody knew
no.
there was another guy in the bathroom. Yeah, which was me. And so I continued to watch the scene of this restaurant for what seemed like a very long time. At this point, I started to notice I could hear everyone's thoughts. And that was so odd to me, that I could hear everyone's thoughts. It felt almost like it was done as a movie for me to watch, because I felt as if I was separate from this place. but yet I was fully experiencing this place and fully experiencing this scene. But I could hear the thoughts of the cook in the back, and the thoughts that were going through his head as he was listening to everyone talk about this guy that they had found in the lobby. I could also hear the thoughts of some of the customers, or the guests that were in the restaurant. It was just so odd and so surreal. And out of nowhere, this one guest, he kept trying to go to the bathroom and the door was locked. After he tried like 4 times, he went and got the manager and said, "Hey, can you unlock that bathroom for me? I think it's been locked by mistake." So the manager went over there and, knocked on the door, no response. He opened the door and he sees this dead body on the ground. Right away, just even looking, you could tell it was dead. There was color in the face that's not normal for anyone living. And it was like a bright purple and a bright yellow. The neck had actually swollen very wide, almost wider than the jawline, that's just odd. The human doesn't look like that normally. So everyone knew something was wrong, and something wasn't right with this body. They called 911 again, and while the manager sat there and talked on the phone, he instructed one of his workers to put her hands on the body and check for a pulse. And as soon as she was feeling for a pulse, she kind of retracted and said that it felt cold. It already felt cold. So they went ahead and secured the room until an ambulance could get there. And a second ambulance was called. It got there. It came with a 3-man crew, though. A normal ambulance comes with 2 men or 2 women or 2 medics. And this one came with a 3-man. And it was because one of the men was a rookie. This was his first week on the job. And that's another thing I could just know. Just witnessing and watching this whole scene, I knew that rookie was brand new. I also knew that he didn't want to see the dead body. And as soon as they, did the DOA or dead on arrival pronouncement, they did pronounce the body dead. They gave a time of death, at least the time of pronouncement, and began to fill out paperwork. They bagged the body. They put it in the back of the ambulance, and they told this rookie, "Stay back here with the body while we finish the paperwork." So he sat back there, and I stayed with him and the body. I didn't really care what was going on in the restaurant at that point. I really was very much invested in this rookie and his perception of this body. And as I'm sitting there watching him, they finish all their paperwork. They leave the scene. They leave this actual place of the Dairy Queen. As they pull away, I start noticing this light. It started to form around him. And it was amazing because the light was coming from out of him. It's as if there was a light that started to ignite inside of his heart, but like around the heart space, he started to glow. And as he started to glow, I heard a really loud voice come from behind me and say, "This one's not dead." And when that happened, I remember looking back and thinking, where did that voice come from? And every time I tried to look behind me, all I could see was darkness. I couldn't see anything but darkness. But yet this voice had come out of that darkness and said very strongly, "This one's not dead." And as odd as it is to say, I didn't know that what I was looking at was my dead body, because me was up here. I was watching everything. There's no possible way that could have been me in there. Me was up here. So I was just still continuing to witness this. And I watched this medic. He had the thoughts like, "I wish that we could do more. I wish they would let me work on this guy. I don't think that we did a good enough job." He felt like the veteran medics that he was training with, he felt like they gave up too soon, and they didn't spend very long trying to resuscitate the body. And one of the reasons they didn't is because it was already cold. And, there's a lot of factors for those guys that, they realized that this guy had been dead for a bit. So they did give up. They figured this guy's gone. Well, this rookie was not about that. He wanted to really push through and do some more work on the body. And he kept thinking things like that. And it's odd because he heard the message, but he didn't hear it. He kind of got rigid when the message was delivered, but then he went back to just relaxing and writing, kind of writing out the ride in the back of the ambulance. And then for a second time, this light, it started to glow on him, but this time it glowed a lot bigger. And it went a lot bigger and brighter around him, all the way from his waist to above his head. He was now glowing. And again, it was as if the light was coming out of him, as if it was like he had some type of light inside him and it was coming out. And then for the second time, I heard really loud, "This one's not dead." And at that point, it was such a strong message. I knew he was going to get it as well as I got it. I knew that this was coming from a higher place, a higher power. And it was said with such power. There's no denying it. Once I heard that message, I knew it was coming from a higher power, like much higher than what I could ever be. And so I watched him. He did receive it the second time. He received it. He paused for a moment and then decided, I'm going to break protocol. I'm going to do this. He unzipped the body bag. He started to feel around for a pulse. He didn't feel one, but he decided, you know what? I'm going to go even further. I'm going to look even further. He unzipped the body bag even further, and there he was feeling around the inner thigh area for a major pulse location. And as he was feeling there, he actually felt a spark, and it felt like a shock. To me, I felt a shock, and I knew he did too because he jumped. And so when he felt that, he like jumped like this. I jumped too, where I was sitting there watching everything. I jumped. So I felt like something happened between him and I right then and there. And for him, that was enough of a sign. For him, he decided, you know what? I want to go ahead and try. So he continued to, undress the body, pull it out of the body bag itself, or clear the body bag off and open it all the way up. He also began to feed oxygen into the lungs for the body. And then he hooked up a defib machine. He hooked up this machine. What it's designed to do is to shock the body to bring the heart back to life, or to trigger the heart back into life. And he hooked me up on that machine. On the first round of shocks, nothing happened. And on the second round of shocks, he did get one single heartbeat. And then on the third round of shocks, he got a steady heartbeat to start. And that's where one of these miracles happened. I mean, the whole thing's a miracle to me. It really is. But to me, one of the first miracles of all this is they were able to start the heart within just only a few feet of a hospital. They weren't going to the hospital. They were actually going to the county medical examiner to turn in the body. And that was the instruction from the supervisors, that they turn this body into the medical examiner. And the route that they were driving, it took them right in front of a hospital. And that heart started within 100 feet of that hospital. So they were just right there. They were able to pull directly into the hospital and have a trauma team there and ready to meet this body so that they could start working on it. And still at this point, I did not know that what I was watching was me. As they transferred the body from the medical gurney in the ambulance over to the medical bed in the hospital, as they transferred it over, the body started to go into seizures. And they had to strap the body down because of the seizures so they could work on it. And as they were strapping it down, I felt someone strapping my left arm. And I looked down. I felt as if someone was truly strapping me down. I looked down on my left where my arm would be, and what I saw was the arm of the dead body. And I saw a strap going around it and pulling it down. And that was the first moment, the first inkling that I had that everything I'd been witnessing, everything I'd been watching was actually my own death.
Thank you so much for watching. As a way to show my gratitude, I am continuing to offer my one-on-one sessions almost 75% off what they were. I personally love offering the lower prices, and you guys do too, because you've been booking up my sessions and supporting me, which I so much appreciate. My spots are limited to 6 sessions per week, and they fill up extremely fast. So don't wait, book your spot today. You can sign up for a 25-minute energy healing, a 45-minute energy healing and spiritual coaching session, or you can pick a custom session and we can fit the session to meet your needs. We can just talk. Some people just want to talk about deconstruction because they don't have anybody else to talk to. I am here for it. I love meeting you guys face to face and getting to spend some time with you, and I am here to serve you. Book your session here. Now back to the show.
And how could I have been watching this and not known that this was my story, this was my experience? And I just felt so ignorant. I felt so dumb. And I started to have this fear energy come into me. And it started to smother me or make me feel like I wasn't worth existing. And at that moment that I had those feelings, I then started to see every bad thing I ever did. Even as a little child, I saw everything bad that I ever did. And I didn't just see it from my eyes, I saw it from the eyes of those who were around me when I did those things. I then started to feel this warming feeling come over me. And then I started to see all the good that I ever did in my life. I saw everything good that I ever did. And many times when I didn't even know I was doing good, sometimes I was doing good. So I was able to see the polarity of my life, the bad first and then the good. And as the good was being shown to me, I started to believe with the deepest parts of my heart that yes, I was worth existing. I was worth being. And I wasn't doing near as bad as I thought. I was doing much better than I thought. And as I had those thoughts, I started to feel this warming energy come over my back. And it feels like someone was pouring like warm, loving light over me. And it started over my back. It started to like creep up over my back. And I knew it was coming from behind me. So I turned around to see what this love was, what this light was that was coming onto me and was pouring over me. And that's when I saw this man. He was all dressed in white and he had a long white beard and pretty long white hair. And my first thought was that this must be God. And he responded without using his mouth. He didn't communicate using words at all. He communicated with direct understanding. He expressed to me that he said, he's like, no, son, I'm not God. And my follow-up thought was, well, if you're not God, then are you, Jesus or some form of Jesus? And he explained that, no, I'm not Jesus either. He explained that he was my guide. He had been sent to help me go wherever I wanted to go. He expressly said that he was known by his friends and his family by the name of Drake, and he would love to take me to go wherever I wanted to go, and I could go anywhere in the universe. And I got really excited for a moment because I do have a very inquisitive mind. I always have. And so as I thought about anywhere in the universe, but then I directly went back to that energy that I was feeling coming from him. That love, that ultimate love that was coming from him. I told him, I want to go wherever that love's coming from. Wherever that source is, that's where I want to go. And he explained that was coming from my home and from his home, and that he could take me there. He could take me to our home. And I said, let's do it. And for one last moment, he said, are you sure you don't want to go back to your body? I can take you back to your body. And I looked back at my body, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I didn't want that. It looked horrible. Everything that was going on around the body, the fighting, the struggling to get, systems to come back on the body. I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to go with him. So I began this journey. I began essentially my 3 days in heaven, you know, the body itself did come back. The heart came back. The brain did not. I was brain dead for 3 days. And while I was brain dead, I was on full life support and I was in a coma, essentially. And in that coma, my consciousness or my soul was traveling with this Drake character, with this guy. And he was taking me on this existential journey towards my home, towards heaven. And it was an amazing experience because I learned why we're here on earth. I was told that the reason we're here is so that we can, number one, learn. We're here for learning. You know, I for some reason thought that earth was kind of like a courtroom. We were here to prove ourselves. And Drake showed me that no, you know, life on earth is just a classroom. We come here so we can learn. And that's it. He helped me explain or help me understand that when we're in our home space is so permeated with love that anything that we want, anything whatsoever, it just starts forming around us. And because we're in such synchronization with the creator there, with our source, that anything we want, it's essentially what our creator wants. We don't have that independent thought. And that for us to have independent thought, we have to step away from that space. We have to go to a place where we can't even remember what our home is like. And that's what Earth School is we step far away from home and we step through this veil or this waterfall of forgetfulness so that we can't even remember where we come from. And so that we can have that truly independent growth and development. Because even if we could remember how much our creator loves us, it would influence every decision we make every day. Completely, it would. And so part of that process of coming here is so that we can forget where we came from and why we're here, so that we can learn on our own. But that was the really cool part about this journey is I didn't have to fully accept what he was showing me, Drake. I just had to be willing to accept that it was possible. And as long as I was willing to accept that it was possible, then I could keep moving with him. He helped explain to me that this journey that we were on, it wasn't just going from, point A to point B. I was going from a low dimension to a high dimension. And that high dimension is a place where ultimate love is. And in that high place, I had to raise my love energy to get there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to even recognize it if I was right in it. So he was on that process of helping me with that. He taught me some cool principles. He taught, the first one was the most important thing for us in this space is to be authentic, to really figure out who we are as individuals and be that person no matter where we go. Because as we're authentic, we can actually grow. But where we're not authentic, we are pushing off growth. We're pushing off our own development. But where we can be authentic and find ourselves vulnerable, that's where we can grow. That's where we find opportunity to grow. But yeah, he went through and taught me a bunch of principles. I lay them out in my story so that people can understand what I had to go through or what I had to understand. One of the hardest ones for me, though, was learning about prejudice, that I couldn't hold any prejudice, even towards prejudiced people. Otherwise, I myself was prejudiced. And that if I felt like I was very anti-prejudice, that me judging them, I was actually becoming prejudiced myself. And that's not to condone or to agree with anything that prejudiced people do, but I myself, for my own progress, I couldn't be judging them or thinking lesser even of prejudiced people. I had to love all of creation. And when I could do that, then I was getting closer to a place where I could actually help people not be prejudiced anymore. But that was an interesting one for me. And he also taught me that We all essentially have the power of creation, and it's our thoughts. What we think, we will create. And if we think good, we can create good. If we think bad, we will attract or create bad. And it's a great power that we're given to have the freedom of thought. And there's a few enemies to that freedom of thought, one of which is our technology. It tends to manipulate our thoughts or try to control our thoughts. And that if we really want, independence of soul, we want to have our own thoughts without the manipulation. So it's important for us to strike up a healthy relationship with technology. And he helped me understand a principle that I try to live by. It's called the hour of power. And that's really recognizing that the first 30 minutes of your day and the last 30 minutes of your day, that these 2 half-hour blocks, they become the hour of power. That way you put in those 30 minutes before bed and the 30 minutes after you wake up, that becomes essentially the trajectory of your life. And if you put the world or news or negative energy into those spaces, then you end up giving yourself a negative trajectory. But if you put positive, you put motivation, you put light, you put God, you put source, you put scripture even in those places, then you realign yourself towards a different direction, a positive direction. But as I was going through all of this, Drake brought me to this place, and it was a big planet. It's hard to believe, but yes, heaven's like a planet, but it's much larger than Earth, millions of times larger. And as we approached, I recognized that the light all around was actually coming from the planet itself. And, unlike our solar system, where our sun is external to us and it shines down and it makes life possible on Earth, in that space, life and energy comes from this place. It's as if it's a planet that's made out of a sun, but it's even brighter than our sun, like much brighter, much higher energy. And as you get closer and closer, you realize that in that light, amongst that light, there is beautiful things, beautiful mountains and trees and plants and grass and buildings. And as we got closer and closer, I recognized that there was divine organization to all of it, that it was all in accordance with its purpose. And we got to touch down there. My feet actually touched the ground in heaven. And that was one of the first things that kind of blew my mind, that I still had feet. I thought, if I was dead, that I wouldn't have a body, but I realized that I do have an energetic body, and it's much bigger and has so much more energy than we do when we're in our bodies. I looked down and I did see toes. I saw my toes and they were touching the grass. I could feel that I was plugging into supreme consciousness, into what I would consider as the energy of God. As I plugged into this grass, I could feel the supreme love that this grass had for me and for all of creation. And that this grass was love in physical form. That I could feel the individual consciousness of each blade of grass. I could feel that each blade of grass loved me and loved all of us. And the craziest thing is each blade of grass had its own distinguishing shade of green. So that means there's billions and billions of shades of green. There's just so many more than what we can recognize in our space. And beyond that, the grass itself had a smell and a flavor that even to touch it with my feet, I was tasting it, had a sweetness to it, had music coming off of it. It even had like these iridescent rainbows, like radiating off of it. Almost like, if you're in the desert and you see the heat moving the air and it kind of gives that illusion effect. That's what it felt like coming off of this grass. You could feel the love radiating off of this grass. And as I plugged in, I knew I was plugging into where I always came from, a place that I was more comfortable than I'd ever been, a place where I felt that that's where I needed to plug in to get recharged. And that my whole life, when I was seeking out happiness or gratification, that I was seeking this very thing that I was getting. And as I just sat there and relished in this energy of the grass, I recognized that there was a supreme consciousness that I could connect to, that I could talk to in this place. And that I was connecting through the grass to that supreme consciousness. And I could feel the unconditional, general love that was just being poured upon me. For even existing, it was being poured upon me. And that there was nothing I could ever do to deserve it, because it was far greater than anything that anyone could do to deserve. It was so much more. And as I was plugging into this grass, Drake was watching me, and I noticed him watching me. And he pointed over and he said, "If you like the grass, you should see the flowers." And I about like lost my mind. There's flowers. And right then and there, it's as if Drake took my consciousness where it was plugged into the grass, and then he put it on a flower, like on the petals of a flower. And I was now experiencing that same experience with the grass, but now with a flower. And at such an intimate way, I was on that petal of the flower, and I could see the light radiating off of the petals of this flower. I could actually again taste just the sweetness of what this flower was and is, and how much it loved me and how much it loved all of creation. And that's when I was about to lose it. I was feeling like it was almost too much. It was so much love. And that's when Drake showed me the trees. And in a second, I was back and I was in my energetic body, standing in the grass. But I was now experiencing the trees up close and personal. And I was experiencing how intelligent they are and how much they bring together their intelligence for the betterment of all of life and humanity. And then I saw that the water was in proximity to me, and the water was actually at my toes asking me, "Do you want us on you?" And I said yes. I had the water come up and over me. And I had a pretty rough upbringing, and I felt this water going over me and washing all of the damage, all of the trauma that I had brought on myself or that others had brought on me. And I became a different person at that very moment that the water came over me. And it helped me understand, in different religions, some religions do baptism. I now, I witnessed essentially what we are copying when we baptize people in this space. I felt that I was essentially being baptized in God's love. And I was having all the rips, the tears, and the damages that life had thrown at me, or that I'd thrown at myself. I was having them repaired at the atomic level, the energetic level. I could feel all of this repairing and stitching going on. And then I noticed this building, and I had so many questions about the building. And I also inherently knew that it wasn't my place to go in this building, even though I wanted to. I wanted to so bad. This building, I knew it was some type of university or some type of higher learning place. And that if I was here permanently, that I would have been able to go in there. And this was the first moment that I started to realize that I wasn't being allowed to have full access to this heaven space. And it wasn't that anyone was restricting me, it was me restricting me. It's almost as if I knew that if I was allowed to go in there, there was no chance of me going back to my body. And so I was just, again, witnessing all of this. And in this supreme splendor of loving all this light and love that was being poured over me by everything. And that's when Drake came up to me and he looked at me in the eyes. And as he looked me in the eyes, he said, and this he actually said with his mouth. This was the first sentence that I heard him say with his mouth. But he looked at me face to face and he said, Vinny, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And then he hugged me. And if we could all get one of these hugs, we would live our lives completely different. I felt the majestic power of our Creator through this hug. I could also feel that this pulse of great power coming off of both of us as we hugged. I could feel that my Creator loved me so much. I could feel that this hug was delivering that love to me. And as I was feeling just this tremendous love, I heard this prayer being given. And it was a prayer being given to my body. Now, meanwhile, again, I'd been brain dead for 3 days. My brother was saying a special prayer over my body. And I was hearing it loud and clear as if he was saying it in my ears. And I heard him command me to be made whole and command me to return to my body, return my consciousness or my soul back to my body. And at that very moment, I felt as if my freedom or my ability to choose was removed. And I was forced, unwillingly at first, to go back to my body. My brother had said this prayer over my body around 10 p.m. And I woke up at 1:11 in the morning, the following morning. I woke up, I felt fine. Interesting part to it, and to me, a sweet, sacred part to all this is many months later, I was in this little town of Afton, Wyoming, and I was watching a historical presentation of the town. And up on the screen, the big, large screen, is a picture of some of the founders of the town. And after about the third or fourth picture, up comes this slide of Drake. And I thought, there's no way this could be Drake. But it was him. There's no question it was him. But there was some confusion because it said his name was Charles. It didn't say his name was Drake. And so I did recognize his last name as the same last name that my grandmother used to have before she got married. So I went to her. I went directly to her. And I asked her, I said, Grandma, tell me about this Charles Kazare. Tell me about him. I need to know about him. And her exact response was, oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of famous in our family. And after that, I just lost it. I started weeping. I couldn't even speak. I just wanted to know more about this Drake. And come to find out, his real name was Charles, his middle name Drake, but he went by Drake with all of his friends. And he went by Charles with all of his coworkers or people he worked with in an official capacity. And he did that for himself so that depending on what people called him, he knew what kind of relationship he had with them. And it was just a beautiful confirmation for me that here I was learning about my own great grandfather who I'd never seen or even heard his names said around me once in my life. But here I had learned who he was. And not only did I learn who he was, I felt like I already knew who he was because of my experience. I really knew who he was. And I've had so many more just beautiful synchronicities, beautiful, what people might want to call coincidences, but the fact that they synchronize with the experience and synchronize with truth, I call them synchronicities. I've had so many. And since then, I've taken this opportunity from my experience to learn how to foster a strong relationship with my intuition. And that has helped me so much in my life. And I couldn't imagine my life without it. And that's really what I do for people every day, is I help them build their own intuition and strengthen their own intuition, and build a path to connect with the creator. Yeah. That's my story.
If you enjoyed this video, you'll find the link to the full interview in the description. You'll also find my guest links and a link to sign up for a one-on-one session for me. You can join the sanctuary, become a YouTube member, or find LCL merch. Thank you so much for your support. Now go do an act of kindness for someone in your life. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and I will see you in our next video.